Hello, I'm Average Joe. Welcome back to the world. Last episode, I made this store you can see in the background. And I put some food in it, and I demonstrated what they do. However, immediately after doing that, I did something kind of silly. So, a little bit of background. There is a mod that you've probably heard of called Axiom. It's actually a really crazy creative building mod with a whole suite of tools that makes it really easy to build anything you want in Minecraft. Big structures, details, it's insane. But it also has an EULA and a paid version. I don't like that. I think it's dumb. I used Axiom a little bit, and when I realized they were doing that, I just immediately uninstalled. Did not want to get involved in that. So, what I did instead is actually what you can see here. I made my own creative building data pack, not mod. And I've been using it ever since. This data pack has essentially everything I feel like I would ever need for building, and it just uses Minecraft's commands. I have a selection wand, I have tools for filling, for copying, things like that. And that all kind of brings me to this. This is a mapping of nearly every Minecraft block based on its color. This took me 6 hours to build, where I went through the search item inventory, picked out every solid block I could find, and basically got its color and mapped it to this. How I did it is a bit... I find it interesting. I don't know if anyone else would, but I have a little thing called, a little program on my desktop called Pixie. So what this little application does is it just shows you the hex color of whatever pixel your cursor is pointing at. And what I would do is, well, first off, I would move this to the side so that I can actually use my game. And you can see that it really just highlights the pixels that my cursor's pointing at. So what I would do is I would... So I have a... where is it? I have a couple command blocks here. And it just takes someone with a tag, aligns them to the center, teleports you up, and then removes the tag. So what I would do is I would get on top of a block, and I would tag myself with Git. And that would put me 100 blocks in the air, and you can kind of see that the block you're looking at loses a lot of its definition, and the colors blur together. So I would hit Ctrl-Alt-C, and that copies down the hexadecimal code from Pixie. And then I would use this spreadsheet, paste in the hexadecimal code, and that would give me a teleport command, which I would then copy out, paste into the game, and it would take me to the block I was facing. Well, the position of where the block I was facing should be. Now, again, this took me 6 hours. Once I had everything in there, and unfortunately some of the blocks overlapped, and I copied all of that into a structure file. And the interesting thing about structure files is that they can be put in data packs, and using commands, a little bit of command trickery, you can automatically load the structure into a set position. So, now that we're back here, I can just open up my Creative Data Pack menu, go to Extra, and enter the workboard. See, my creative building data pack has a little extra dimension here that was meant to be a clipboard. It wasn't working properly, so it's mostly unused until now. Because now I have my little color palette, color picker thing here. So why on earth did I do this? Well, Axiom has a new feature where you can put 2 blocks into an interface and it will make a gradient for you. And I can do that with this. Well, not specifically with this, but I'll get more into that later. Essentially what a gradient is you're taking one position and another position, drawing a straight line between the two. So block of lapis lazuli to block of bamboo, and just picking different blocks on the way there. And that gives you an approximation of a gradient in this case. There are better options, like if I wanted to go from, let's say, lapis to, I think that's magenta concrete. So you'd pick this, you'd pick this, pick this, pick this, and it's a much smoother gradient. Now, I can't do this automatically at the moment, but I have an idea. So, first thing to consider is scale. What I have measured out right here is a 256 by 256 by 256 cube with its origin at 0. So what a hex code is it is 3 numbers listed in hexadecimal numbers represented as a 6-digit code. So the first 2 digits represent red, the second 2 digits represent green, and the next 2 digits represent blue. And they have a value of 0 to 255, where 0 is least expressed and 255 is most expressed. If I go down to this normal sized thing here, okay, so when it comes to light and pixels specifically, they are additive. So instead of like mixing red and blue to get purple, or red and yellow to get orange, or yellow and blue to get green, your primary colors are red, green, and blue. And when you mix red and blue, you get things that are magenta. Mixing blue and green, you get things that are more cyan. Which makes me wonder why the cyan block is on the border of red and green, when red and green actually makes yellow. Looking at it now, something doesn't make sense here. I'm getting distracted. But yeah, so if I want to spread this out to its maximum thing, I need 255 by 255 by 255. Then all of these will be spread out along here, with each of their values being represented perfectly with no overlap. But okay, so a structure block can only hold a 48 by 48 by 48 cube. So if we're looking at 256 divided by 48, that is, actually, can I do 255 divided by 48? Not really. But that's essentially 6 structure blocks per side. And 6 cubed is 216 structure blocks that would need to be loaded in for all of the blocks to be represented. And that is no-go. Bad idea. Too many commands. Too much loading in at once. Just no. So I need a smaller alternative. So 256 divided by 2 is 128. So maybe 128 is better. 128 divided by 48 is 3 on each side. 3 cubed is 9. That is much more reasonable. Alright, it has been one day, and I am already going insane. So there's a couple things I need to worry about when I'm setting the blocks up, specifically a block's faces. So each block has a couple different faces that have different textures on them, and when you start flying away, I assume they kind of get simplified in different ways, which means the color that we see from them from far away is going to be different from their other faces. You can kind of see for the furnaces, the face with the 2 black spots looks darker to our eyes than the face that does not have the 2 black spots. And if we keep going further away, it gets harder and harder to tell. And also we get the just fog that things that are farther away get. They tend to be made lighter by the game, which is an issue. Because if we want the game to simplify its textures for us, then we need to be aware that that's happening. And that basically means all of the pixels are going to be darker or lighter than what they would be otherwise. So we have like the fog to worry about. Blocks are going to appear lighter the farther away I get. And you know, that's normal. I expected that. And then I started looking at the game closer, and that's when I started going crazy. So, to start with, did you know that Minecraft has a directional lighting system, right? So if I go over to, let's say, this stripped log here, it's pretty easy to see. The Z-facing faces, so this face and this face, are actually lighter than the X-facing faces. And you might think that's a time of day thing, except if I do time set midnight, they are still that way. And actually, the top is lighter than both of them. And I know this because I actually was checking whether or not the pixel colors on the texture in the game are the same as the pixel textures like on my computer, and they're not. So if I just bring up my spreadsheet really quick, I have listed I took a sample of 3 different pixels, right? And I took what Pixie was telling me I was seeing in the game, what Pixie told me from the texture when I opened it up in a image editor, and I did double check, and these are actually what the image editor says those colors are, and this is the value difference between them. And you can see it's not consistent, and that is insane. And these are just taken from the top of blocks, which have the least amount of shading applied to them. The sides of blocks have more shading applied to them. And that's not the only thing that is driving me insane, but I also noticed that solid blocks have shading around them. You can kind of see it on like every block around here. And that is just weird, because if I go and I turn off smooth lighting, it's just gone. It doesn't even just darken up the blocks smoothly around it. The shade is just gone. But there's still the X and Y shade, the X and Z shading. Which, you know, if you're having an alleyway, if the blocks are the same, hey, this is the front facing, so it's gonna get more light. Hey, these are closer together, they're gonna be darker. But it's weird when you look at it this way, because then it's not like that. And listen, I'm going insane. None of this actually has any effect on what I'm trying to do here. If I am concerned with how the blocks look in the game, then it doesn't matter if they're inconsistent with their textures, but if the sides of blocks are different shades, they're going to have different hex codes, which means maybe I should consider things from the sides, not just the tops. I'm fine. I swear I'm fine. In other news, cyan goes there instead of over there. Turns out when I was pasting values into my spreadsheet, it was taking some things as numbers as it shouldn't have and rounding things that I didn't want it to. So there's probably blocks in here that are wrong. I'm really gonna do this again. Alright. A nice, calming bath. Taking some time to sit down and relax. So, let's get to business. Rule number 1. I will only be doing this with full blocks and only blocks that do not have any transparency. So, no glass, no leaves, even though I know those technically can not have transparency if your settings are different, and also no copper grates. Next rule, no block entities, which means basically anything that would disappear if you're far away enough. Not going to have overlapping colors, no duplicate hex codes. The way I want this to work means that we're going to have armor stands, and we're going to be detecting their proximity to another armor stand, which means we can't have things that are the same. Essentially, it would just keep picking the one over the other, so there's no point to that. So no duplicates. Rule number 4, top faces only. We are not caring about the sides. Since I've noticed that the colors are just different on different faces, we're only going to worry about the top ones. If it has a top face, it goes in. If it has multiple top faces, we'll just make multiple entries for the block. That seems fair enough, right? Final rule, stateless. We are not caring about the states of the blocks. So if a furnace can be powered, not worrying about that. If a crafter can be powered, not worrying about that. The only exception is blocks where that would make a difference. So things like the copper bulb, which lights up, the redstone lamp, which lights up, and is that the... are those the only two? I think those are the only two. Whatever. And one final rule. Animations will be dealt with in a case-by-case basis. Things like prismarine kind of gradiate between two colors, so we might not be able to get a good feel for what that looks like. And in this initial block, I actually did leave it out because I knew it just kind of did its own thing with two different hues. Any other animated thing, like maybe sea lanterns, could go in because the sea lantern animation doesn't really change much. But then you have something like the magma block, which I think is animated. I don't think we have to worry about that one too much. I don't think that's going to make too much of a difference. It might, for all I know. Might be something to look at. Were these animated? Yes, they are. So, case-by-case basis. Simple as that. So I suppose one thing to note is that for logs, we're only going to count the top face here as its face because the wood is essentially just the one side of the log, but with the top covered. So we're not going to count logs as having multiple sides because they're covered already. Same goes for the stripped ones. I don't know if there's anything else that counts. I know bamboo doesn't fall into this because it has... I don't think it has, like, a variant where it's just one on every side, so that doesn't come into consideration. Probably won't count bookcase bookshelves, because they're not directional and the top of them is just the oak plank texture, but we can count chiseled bookshelves because they have a separate texture than those. I don't know if I explained this already or not, but I cut this down from 256 to 128, and I'm thinking maybe just going back to 48 and keeping it as a single structure block. What's going to happen is we're going to have armor stands at the points where I want the blocks to be represented, but I also want to be able to go in and pick the blocks, and having a 128 by 128 is just too big to be able to casually walk around and pick blocks from. So I think I will just have this structure, which I might redo because there are inaccuracies, inconsistencies, things like that. And I will just make another structure with the armor stands in it. Hello, this is Future Matt here. The audio for this clip was kind of messed up, and I'm actually worried my microphone is starting to go. So whether or not this one sounds good will be dependent on that. But essentially, during this clip, I was just pointing out that I have done some work on the gradient already, did all the wood types. Everything is mostly automated. I moved all of the all of the hexadecimal conversion calculations into Minecraft itself using scoreboards and storage data and all of that stuff. I also added a mod to get rid of the render fog, which you can probably tell here, so that wasn't corrupting the hex code readings. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I decided to do a time lapse after this clip, but it was 10 seconds long and didn't look good, so I'm not going to include it. Alright, it's been a couple days now, and as you can see, I kind of got the new color map integrated into the extra dimension that the patch edit data pack makes. And, you know, I got a little bit ahead of myself, so, welcome to the Gradient Garage. Yeah, I don't know, I just kind of, yeah, I got ahead of myself. So I've got some command blocks here. They have different functions listed by their signs, but I'm gonna show them off anyways. I set it up so that just the armor stands are shown in the gradient. I've set it up so that you can do just the blocks. And you can do both if you need them. Inside, I have a button to give you just 8 random blocks. I have a button to clear the line. And let me just pick some random ones here. I have a button to make a gradient out of the 2 blocks on the far sides, right? And it's fairly accurate. Honestly, it needs a little bit of work. It's not perfect, especially since there are duplicates of blocks, and I am currently not accounting for those. Not just with the starting, which is the bigger problem, but also with the generating, which is the smaller problem. Hey, Future Matt again. To make a 10-minute explanation short, we are just taking 2 points, which are the positions of the block in the gradient map, making a 3D vector between those two, dividing it into 6 parts, and taking the nearest block at each of those steps. And that is how we are generating our gradients. It is not perfect. We are not accounting for duplicate entries at the start and the end. it's not always going to be a perfect gradient because sometimes the blocks go way far away or they spin around the line. But it could be better. There are some things I can fix, there are some things that I can't, but for what it is, I think it's pretty good. Now, you might be asking yourself, hey Joe, what the heck? Why did you take, like, 3 days, 12 hours of your life to make that gradient machine thing if you could just use Axiom? And I believe I went over this at the beginning. Were you paying attention? But regardless, the reason I wanted to make a color gradient thing in the first place was because of that. So I've said it before, I'm not the biggest fan of how the roof came out for the store, specifically on the sides. I genuinely think more could be done to make this more interesting, and I think a color gradient is probably what I'm going to go with. Specifically, I'm going to get a gradient between the snow and the light blue wool, or concrete, on the side, just to make it blend a bit better, and maybe something between the concrete and the wool. I'm not 100% sure, but now that I have the gradient map and the gradient machine done, I can just go do that. Let's just go do that now. Why not? Also, I have switched to 1.21.11, so all of the mods I was using are non-functional. And you might wonder how I did the zoom thing. I've actually got a data pack that just lets me zoom based on my scroll wheel, and it goes all the way into my head. But you don't see that very often, because why do you want to see something so empty? Pretty good. I like that. Alright. Let's go back and try that out. How does it look from further away? And the iced one instead? Not all that different, really. Alright, well, we'll just use this gradient for now, see if that grows on me over time. Just gotta make the other side the same. Okay, so that's one side done. Now I want to do light blue wool to light blue concrete. I get the feeling this one's probably not going to have that big of a difference. Yep, I had a feeling. Hear me out for a second. You know, that might do it. Okay, I'm going to give that time to settle, but I do recognize that this doesn't exactly solve the problem I had, which is that the roof isn't particularly appealing. It is basically just one straight line. There's nothing really to break it up. It needs something up there. I also don't know what it is about that. That looks better. Somehow. It does kind of look better. It definitely makes the center bit blend in with the outer edge more. I don't know if I like that or not. Honestly, this is very much new ground for me. I don't know, you guys tell me what you think about that. Alright, I think I need to end the episode here. I've basically done everything I've wanted to this episode, with one exception that I will get to in a minute. I keep getting distracted in this little work area, because I have my little gradient machine, and then at the end of the last clip, I decided I needed to make some... So this is also going to be like a little test building area, so I figured I needed just a little spot to, you know, test build things. Mark out some chunks and do some building in them. And maybe copy the final result over to the overworld and things. And this is just slowly becoming a creative building world that I can just paste into any other world that I see. So that's a thing, I guess. Anyways, if you liked the video, leave a like, maybe leave a comment about, oh gee, I don't know, leave a comment on just any of the things I've built here, some other stuff you think should be in this little, creative dimension. I have 6 other slots to build in, one at two, next to each of the roads there. Don't ask about the roads. And yeah, I will see you guys next time. But before I go, there's one last thing I have to do.